Hello everyone, welcome to the Wake Up Call. I'm Richard Martin and it's Monday, October the 28th, 2019, and I'm talking to you from Malaysia. Well, I come to you with more information as to the failing nature of the economy. Of course, I am aware that the stock market has been playing around the highs for many months now, but you must remain convinced that things are not going from strength to strength. The economy is failing, and there are plenty of statistics to prove it. You must be aware of these even if you don't remember them. The purpose here is to make you aware of them so you remain confident in the knowledge that behind the scenes and away from the media hype, all is very definitely not well. So let's have a look. The most detailed picture of the American consumer reveals there's more dropping going on right now than shopping. That's problematic, and here's why. 4 of the 5 core sectors that comprise gross domestic product, or GDP, have already thrown in the towel. Housing, investment and business capex are flatlining, net exports are heading south, and the government sector's bleeding red ink. That leaves personal consumption expenditures, or PCE, which comprise 70% of GDP. This is what's left to keep growth alive. Well, the most recent report shows that real spending grew by just 2.27% from American consumer is stalling. And this trend's been forming since real spending growth peaked at 4.5% back in February 2015. So there is nothing to stop this aging recovery from totally rolling over. Neither the Federal Reserve nor any other authority can save the US economy from what's coming. We've seen the MAGA cure. That sugar high wore off long ago. Indeed, neither ZIRP or ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, nor QE, quantitative easing, righted what went wrong in 2008. Easier money and debt monetization have proven to be mere palliatives, which actually aggravate the ongoing metastasis below the surface. The problem is the longer so-called stimulus is applied, the more unsustainable it becomes. It's debt on top of debt. It's speculation on top of speculation. It's malinvestment on top of malinvestment. Deep state Washington neither gets it nor cares. Wall Street doesn't care. Stimulus, like alcoholism, is a progressive disease that leaves the body economic ever more vulnerable to external shocks, black swans and great disruptors. The real driving force of trouble is deep and sustained interest rate repression. Please believe me here. This is not talked about anywhere, so it's difficult to appreciate this fact about repressed interest rates. The practice of repressing interest rates artificially is, in fact, the essence of monetary central planning, and quite simply, it means that prior excesses are never purged. They become the rotten foundation for new layers of debt, speculation, and malinvestment. So when all 5 sectors of GDP flatline month number When all 5 sectors of GDP flatline month number 24 of an already historical weak expansion cycle, you can be quite certain the economy is sick. You cannot avoid the consequences of mistakes fostered by more than 10 years of artificially cheap debt and the desperate scramble for yield among investment managers. This eventually overwhelms capitalism's inherent forward momentum. Ladies and gentlemen, America is at a crossroads. The middle class is disappearing. Government spending is out of control, and the implosion of bubble finance will cause the greatest market crash in history. So if you need access to your nest egg in the next 10 or 20 years, and you can't afford another market crash, it's way past time to take matters into your own hands. The Wall Street Journal captured the phenomenon in a recent story headlined, "The 7-year auto loan, America's middle class can't afford their cars." The authors note that since 2009, the average transaction price of new autos has risen from $30,000 to $40,000, or by 33%. That compares to just a 25% gain in average hourly earnings. Such a shortfall would materially squeeze auto affordability in an honest finance market. What happened instead is that auto loan maturities were substantially lengthened and buyers purchased ever more expensive vehicles at a constant share of wages. This is what's commonly referred to as kicking the can down the road. Unfortunately, that's not the extent of the impairment. 80% of households must now plunge deep into debt, with loans so large business has been transformed as well. Dealers now make more money from financing cars than they do from selling them. According to data and analytics firm J.D. Power, so far in 2019, dealerships made an average of $982 per new vehicle on finance and insurance versus $381 on the actual sale. A decade earlier, financing brought in $516 per car, and the sale made dealers $837. Where all this cheap debt comes from is not hard to find out. The Fed's ultra-low rates functioned as a rolling bailout for the entire auto industry, and fund managers desperate for yield lined up around the block and back for securitized auto loans. Last year, investors bought a record $107 billion of bonds backed by cars, causing total outstandings to rise to $264 billion. That's up from just $100 billion in 2009. The securitized portion of the auto debt berg is only the tip of the thing. Overall, auto debt outstanding now totals $1.3 trillion, up from $740 billion in the immediate aftermath of the global financial crisis or Great Recession. This inevitably leads on an aggregate basis to a debt-encumbered dead end. Total US light vehicle sales plateaued at about 17 million units annualized in late 2006, early 2007. They plunged to as low as 10 million during the Great Recession. They fought their way back to the 17 million level by May 2014, and they've pretty much flatlined around that level ever since. But not so the auto debt berg. By May 2014, auto debt outstanding was already 20% higher than it was in January 2007. It's just kept climbing reaching 150% of its 2007 level in the second quarter of 2019. It took a 50% increase in auto debt outstanding simply to get annual sales back to the 17 million mark set 12 years ago in January 2007. When the next recession inexorably arrives, far more auto borrowers will be underwater and unable to pay when their jobs or incomes dry up. But the amount of auto paper in harm's way will be 50% higher. That's stimulus at work. I hope all this is helping you prepare for 2020. The stock market today is the most politicised market in history, and the tweeter-in-chief is still in charge. So the situation is changing almost by the minute. It's impeachment in Washington and all over the mainstream media. It's easy money on Wall Street and across bubble vision. It seems as if the whole world has indeed gone mad. Amid this chaos, prices will continue to rise and fall, trends will continue to develop and dissipate. The stakes are as high as they could possibly be heading into 2020. Markets appear to be straining, catching up to an economy that's been weak and getting weaker for years. Trump's tied up in the day-to-day movements of the major stock indices like no president before him. The increasingly desperate incumbent will do anything he must to hold the White House. It's a major tipping point, and there's no telling what Trump's great disruptions could do to your wealth.